Hello everybody and welcome along to Audi on Track. We're here in the Audi Sports Studio overlooking the pit lane at the world famous Nürburgring. We're in the Grand Prix pits, of course. That's the view outside. It is raining this morning. The classic cars are out on the circuit and having so much fun. Really wish I was out there. Maybe, because it is a little bit difficult out there. We've got a fabulous weekend of action for you. And what we're going to do here at Audi on Track is take you behind the action. Some places perhaps you would normally not be able to go. And we want you to get involved as well. Ask us questions. We're going to have drivers in here throughout the weekend. Make sure that you look on the portal for the place that you can ask the questions and get them into us. And at noon today, Central European time, we'll have effectively a virtual autograph session when a representative of each of the Audi teams will be here in the studio and answering your questions. But they can only answer your questions if you ask them. So do that straight away. Now, the good news for you is it's not just me standing here talking to you, because that would get very, very tedious very quickly. I have with me two Audi legends of driving and the sport. To my immediate right, in alphabetical order, Frank Baylor. Good morning, Frank.
Good morning, John.
And Alan McNish to the far end. I'm not sure why we put you so far away, Alan. Of course, we're socially distanced.
Exactly, John, but it's good to be here and back at the Nürburgring as well.
We've got all kinds of action for you. Check the portal. There's interactivity going on as well. So giving you a little bit more to get inside what is always a fantastic race here. But this year even more special because it's the 50th anniversary of the first running of the Nürburgring 24, which is developed from what was a very German national race into the international global mega race that it is now. We might not have the largest amount of cars this year, but particularly in the top class, the entry is very impressive and very deep indeed. And indeed, Frank, if I can come to you first, you've only got to look at the driving talent on show for Audi Sport and the customer teams to realise just how competitive this race is going to be.
Yes, sure. I mean, if we look at our entries, driver lineup is unbelievable. A lot of very, very experienced drivers in the cars, very professional teams, but also the other teams, the opposition, very, very strong. We do have around 30 cars in GT3, so very, very competitive, very tough.
Alan, I often talk, and you've heard me talk about this in the past, I often talk about the talent that's on the wall as well as the talent behind the wheel, and perhaps here at the Nürburgring that's as important, if not more important than anywhere else. With your Audi Sport App Scheffler team principals hat on, just what can you guys do as team principals to affect what's going on?
Well, as a driver, you look through your visor and you're looking at where you're going, but actually the support network behind the driver is huge. And especially here at Nürburgring, in any 24-hour event, you need to have a big, big crew behind you. And they're making sure that the planning is in process and what's coming up next is already prepared. And that could be the eventualities they know and understand, but it can also be the things that they're not actually prepared for. Because as we know, 24-hour racing does throw in the curveballs every now and then. And so therefore, the teams here have to be top-notch, exactly like the drivers.
And the team names are just as big as the driver names. We've got some of the biggest of the sport here racing with Audi this weekend.
Yeah, with teams like Phoenix, WRT, Land, last year's winners. There are some really, really strong teams, and the engineers and the people behind them. And people I personally and Frankie have known for such a long period of time through the different programs we've all been racing in. And so therefore I would have said that the talent pool is pretty exceptional. And that's something that I think this place does require, because it requires a lot of respect.
Some things are the same, obviously. The Nürburgring doesn't change. It's a fantastic challenge for everybody. But what will change this year is we're in September. Therefore, the Eiffel weather can be strange at any time of the year, and we've got rain this morning. But the ambient temperature is likely to be a lot colder, Frank. And talking to particularly the tyre technicians, overnight, they're really quite concerned about that.
Yeah, the forecast says 4 or 5 degrees at night, and that's a big problem, because going out there on cold tires, especially on the Nordschleife, it's very, very dangerous. And I doubt that it's possible in that temperatures to warm the tires up, only on the Grand Prix track. It's the same for everybody. Everybody has to try to cope with it, but it's going to be difficult, and yeah, they have to be very, very careful. The other thing is, I just checked last night. I mean, we do have almost 12 hours in the dark.
Yes.
Yeah, from sunset to sunrise, it's 12 hours, but definitely 10, 11 hours really, really in the dark. So it's a different challenge. It's going to be very, very difficult.
Alan, you don't like the wet. You've already said to me when we were watching the classics going out, I'd like to drive this, but not if it's damp. Frank and I have got the opportunity to be in either air conditioning or heating. You're going to be doing some bits and pieces of other things that will take you outside of the studio.
Well, unlike Frank, I've never actually raced this 24 hours. He's done it many, many times. So for me, I'm actually really looking forward to looking behind the scenes and also bringing some of that to Audi on track. And so what we're going to be doing is having a little peek behind the door of some of the things that you normally wouldn't see. You see the car on the circuit, but do you see the fact that we've got a massive medical truck here with doctors that are preparing the drivers, physios, to make sure that the drivers are tip-top, also the mechanics. But as we know, things can happen. So we've got a complete support network as well to make sure all the stickering, this is detail stickering on the cars, because I'm quite sure there'll be a few bonnets going on the cars. Parts truck is essential, because, as I said, things can happen, and so you need to know where everything is, every shim and washer. And then ultimately down in the pit lane, where these guys doing all of the pit stops have to be just as precision perfect as every single driver. So we'll do a 360 view of what it takes to actually be in the Nürburgring 24 hours.
And by the way, you guys in the parts truck, Chris Renke said to me he wants you to be very quiet and have no work at all this weekend. That means everything's going very well indeed. Now, we're in the VIP hospitality, what would normally be the VIP hospitality area over the pit lane at the moment here at the Nürburgring. And Alan's talking about what's going on behind the scenes. It takes more than just people with spanners to run these cars. There are all kinds of data engineers that are looking after the cars as well. And in fact, just behind the cameras that you're watching us at the moment is the engineering centre. We like to call it mission control, and you can see there why we call it that. They have a huge bank of screens. They're watching data. They're monitoring everything from tyre wear, pressures, temperatures of the engines as well, of course. I'm not sure whether we were supposed to be seeing all of that data that we were looking over the shoulder of the guys there for at the moment, but we might have to put a little bit of something in front of the camera, particularly if there's anybody from any of our competitors watching this weekend. How important, Alan, is it then to get that team spirit and to get that working early between the guys who are hands-on with the cars and the guys behind the glass on the other side who are still very important, but clearly who aren't going to be getting out a shifter spanner?
Yeah, Frankie and I were very fortunate. Through our driving careers, we had some fantastic engineering support. And I would say the driver's engineer and the direct people working with the driver, it's like a marriage. You've got to instinctively know what the comments mean, what the thoughts, you know, when the driver says it's doing this. That's actually an emotion, whereas ultimately the engineers work in numbers, so they have to translate emotions into numbers and then to take it from there. So it is absolutely critical. But what you said about team spirit, I think, in this type of racing is as important as anything else, because ultimately that is what gets you through the difficult times in the night, after the incidents, after the problems, to bring you back to the checkered flag on Sunday afternoon.
But ultimately, Frank, the challenge here revolves around the track. There is no track like the Nürburgring Nordschleife. There is no race like the Nürburgring 24. Everything about it is bigger, more scary. It just happens at a different pace. Even as a commentator, I have to completely recalibrate my brain to 8 minutes 15 second laps. And that's the thing that you've got to get into quickly.
It's definitely the most challenging circuit. There's no doubt, and if you look at the pictures, very narrow going out there on the Nordschleife, and even if some places are easily flat when you are on your own, with the traffic you have to be very, very focused and concentrated throughout the lap. So it's really, really tough, physically very hard, because of the up and downs and all the elevation differences and a lot of bumps on the track. So. I mean, it's not a modern Formula One track, you know. It's an old style, real racetrack, and it doesn't any little mistake you have to pay for, and probably with a big one. So you really do have to be focused and concentrated.
And we've seen already in the early running here, Frank, in the World Touring cars that are here, we had Santiago Arata went off in the Cyan, just put a wheel off onto the dirt, and at the top of Arenberg after Schwedenkreuz had a decent-sized accident. You said to me yesterday afternoon that will not be the last one, and my goodness, you were right, because one of the AMGs had a huge accident there last night, in fact the fastest.
It's a very difficult sector of the track. You are really, really fast going around Flugplatz, then going down to Schwedenkreuz, and if you arrive there around, I think with the GT3 it should be around 240, 250 kph, and it's over a little crest in the corner, so the rear gets light. It's a typical place. It can happen to everybody, but maybe if you are a little bit less experienced, or you go out there in the wet for the first time.
Cold tires?
Last night it was wet, cold tires. It's easy to crash the car there. And that's what we saw. Other thing was out of Fuchsröhre, another very, very famous place. Again, around 250, 240 when you go up there. There's a left-hander. You have to run the curb at the inside. Maybe in the wet, it's not so easy, so that's why he crashed. Very, very difficult places. And yeah, it's a big challenge, but that's what it makes so special, and that's why people love this racetrack.
Special, Alan, or just completely bonkers? You've driven here, you've driven laps around here.
Yes, I have.
And you've done quite a lot of laps around here at speed for various parts of your Audi ambassadorship. But you said you haven't raced, but you chose not to race it.
Yes, well, Audi came here in 2009 for the first time, and when they came with the GT3 car. And at that point, Frankie and I were very much into our LMP sides of our career. And it's not something that actually I raced in. But it's also something, when you were talking about that in experience, the drivers have to go through a series of pre-races, the VLN races, to get their license. You can't just arrive, even if you've won world championships in other categories, you can't just arrive here and drive. You actually have to go through your license effectively for Nürburgring, because it is such a special event.
And is that right, that you have to have the permit to do that? Do you think that that is nowadays? It wasn't always like that, but for the last 5, 6, 7 years, maybe more than that, a decade, it's been like that.
I think when you look at the driving quality here, and you look at the fact that everybody that is racing at the top end to win this event outright, they are treating it extremely seriously. It's not just one that you can sort of do as an add-on. It is something that you have to prepare through the year as a team, but also as a driver as well. And I think that experience is something that you definitely have to have here, but it's also looking at the track. It's one that you've got to know instinctively in every situation, as Frank was saying, because there's going to be situations through the 24 hours that would catch you out otherwise. And it's one that actually, when I look at it, I'm really excited to be here, but I'm also kind of nervous as well. And I'm not driving.
I know exactly how you feel, Alan. So what we're going to be doing today, this Friday, is setting the scene for you, taking you behind the scenes with Alan, and also covering the track action as well, because later on today we have got 2 what's called top qualifying that will set the front part of the grid and will culminate in the single car shootout, which over the last few years has been tremendously exciting. If the weather fares up, if it gets dry, it's probably the quickest the cars are going to go for the whole weekend, and everybody will be trying exceptionally hard to get the best position on the grid that they can. In between us talking and doing our shows here, you'll be able to stay on the channel at audiontrack.com and listen to the English language commentary from Johnny Palmer and the rest of the Radio Show Limited team, who are looking after that side of things. And also right throughout the race, we'll be having guests and trying to bring you up to date with some of the Audi Sport stories from here at the Nürburgring. In your diary, on your phone, however you set yourself an alarm, back here for the virtual autograph session. That's what we're calling it, a representative of each of the Audi teams. That is at Nürburgring noon, 12 o'clock, straight up, right back here on Audi On Track. Thanks to Alan and to Frank. I'm John Hindhaugh. Don't go too far away. We'll see you at noon. Bye-bye.